9. Buran space shuttles. During the Cold War, the United States and the Soviet Union competed to develop superior space technology and to be the first to reach certain milestones, including traveling to the moon. Starting in 1974, the Soviet Buran program sought to create a reusable spacecraft. The project was established in hopes of one-upping NASA's Space Shuttle program. Designed to hold 6 passengers with extra room for cargo and satellites, the Buran spacecraft measured 56 feet, 17 meters long. It launched into space in late 1988 after completing 24 domestic test flights. The vehicle completed 2 orbits, then re-entered the atmosphere before successfully touching down under automatic control, which NASA spacecrafts couldn't do. But the project's timing couldn't have been worse. In 1991, 3 years after the Buran spacecraft launched into orbit, the Soviet Union collapsed and the program was canceled. There are 3 surviving Buran vehicles which sit abandoned inside a hangar in modern-day Kazakhstan. They never ended up in a museum because there wasn't enough public interest to justify moving them, and because doing so would have been a complicated task. At the Zhukovsky airfield outside Moscow, there's a wooden replica of one of the space shuttles that was created as part of a Buran program, known as the VKK Space Orbiter. It sits in an abandoned corner of the field as a decaying reminder of the biggest and most expensive Soviet space program that ever existed. 8. JFK's Nantucket Doomsday Bunker. On Nantucket Island off Cape Cod, Massachusetts, there's a noticeable but not blatantly obvious turquoise doorway. The mysterious doorway leads to a Cold War-era fallout shelter, known to some as the Kennedy Bunker. It was built during the early 1960s, a time when the US government poured hundreds of millions of dollars into bunker building projects, while also encouraging civilians to build their own private bunkers. The shelter on Nantucket was meant to serve as a hideout for the Kennedys if nuclear war struck, while they were spending time at their farmed vacation home, 30 miles, 48.3 kilometers away on the mainland. Located on the southeastern part of the island, the site was built next to a submarine monitoring station that was already shrouded in secrecy at the time. The heavy security presence made it easy to construct the bunker away from the prying eyes of the public. Built from prefabricated steel structures known as Quonset huts, the bunker was quickly assembled and soon became concealed by plant overgrowth. It housed a decontamination chamber and basic no-frills accommodations, including portable toilets. The site was equipped to accommodate Kennedy and 20 cabinet members for up to a month. In the event of a nuclear strike happening while the president was in Massachusetts, he and his staff members would be rushed to the bunker via helicopter or submarine. For years, the site languished with an uncertain future, while it fell victim to repeated break-ins by local troublemakers. In 2020, the town of Nantucket approved plans to turn it into a museum. But the project was met with delays due to COVID. According to the most recent update, officials hope to resume the work within the next 3 to 5 years. 7. 58 Joralemon Street. While walking through New York City's Brooklyn Heights neighborhood, it's easy not to notice what appears to be a typical brownstone building at 58 Joralemon Street, until you realize that the windows are tinted suspiciously dark. So dark, in fact, and so reflective that you can't see the inside at all. And if you stop and listen for long enough, you might hear a rumbling noise coming from inside, and which can't be explained by any normal household activity. Built in 1847, the property was initially a traditional townhouse that was home to the family of a judge named Tunis Joralemon. Fast forward a few decades to the early 20th century, and the neighborhood, once called Willowtown, was booming. The New York City subway system was under construction and would soon connect the burgeoning populations of Brooklyn and Manhattan via a pair of tunnels that ran beneath the East River. Planners determined that 58 Joralemon Street would be the perfect location for these underground tunnels, and in 1908, the Interborough Rapid Transit Company bought the property. To avoid disrupting life at street level more than they already had, or dramatically changing the landscape of the neighborhood, the IRT left the townhouse standing and gutted it to suit their needs. Inside, they implemented a ventilation shaft. The site continues to function for the same purpose today, and it also serves as an emergency exit in the event that something goes wrong in the tunnel. Do you have any secret locations hidden in plain sight in your town? Tell us in the comments and hit subscribe while you're at it. 6. Connecticut's Road to Nowhere. During the early 1950s, plans were made to create a highway connection linking Hartford and New London, Connecticut. It was as part of a bigger road plan meant to accommodate the state's growing population. Construction on Route 11 began in 1966, and it was just halfway completed when, unfortunately, the project ran out of funding in 1972. The finished portion opened to traffic, with many jokingly referring to it as Route 5.5. But it's not heavily used, and instead of linking drivers to any major cities, the functioning section of Route 11 ends in the small town of Salem. From a bird's-eye view, it's easy to see how paved portions of the unfinished part of the road run into dirt paths that were flattened but never paved over. But at ground level, aside from the fact that it's being reclaimed by nature, the unused road seems to blend into the landscape alongside the functioning thoroughfares that run through the area. Money issues continued to hamper any efforts to complete Route 11. And environmental concerns also became an obstacle. When Native American artifacts were found along the planned construction route, it only added to the growing list of reasons why the project was ultimately abandoned, leaving behind a stretch of partially completed road that was never finished and put to use. Every once in a while, someone tries to breathe new life into the campaign to finish Route 11. But for the most part, most people have accepted that it's unlikely to happen. 5. 33 Thomas Street. Looking at the New York City skyline from a distance, you're most likely to notice the tallest and brightest buildings. It isn't until you get much closer that you'll spot a 550-foot tall, 167.6 meters, drab, concrete, windowless skyscraper located at 33 Thomas Street in Lower Manhattan's Tribeca neighborhood. Commonly known as the AT&T Long Lines Building, the bizarre brutalist structure was built in the early 1970s to house the world's largest center for processing long-distance phone calls at the time. It's impossible to see inside, and at night, the building becomes even more hidden from view. According to records, AT&T still owns and uses the high-rise, but a 2016 investigation by The Intercept claimed to find evidence that the property functions as more than just a highly secure and secretive telecommunications center. The report alleged that 33 Thomas Street also functions as one of the National Security Agency's most important monitoring hubs on U.S. soil, where agents tap phone calls, faxes, internet data, and other activity. While the address wasn't specifically listed in the documents obtained by the publication, other evidence, including architectural plans, public records, and interviews with former AT&T employees, allegedly points to the building's use as a top-secret surveillance site called Titan Point. Some of the information came from records leaked by whistleblower Edward Snowden, which strongly suggests that the NSA has a highly secure facility within the building, where agents have targeted the United Nations, the World Bank, the International Monetary Fund, and at least 38 countries. The NSA declined to comment on the story, which means that it neither confirmed nor denied the use of 33 Thomas Street for its controversial surveillance activities. 4. Cardiff Cold War Bunker. In an affluent suburb of Cardiff, Wales, called Llandaff, there's an inconspicuous single-story brick building tucked away in the yard of a Victorian mansion. While it would be hard to guess what it's used for just by looking at it, the windowless, vine-covered structure doesn't exactly come across as suspicious or exciting. But one glance of the interior reveals that the building was meant for something other than everyday use. Built in 1956 amid escalating Cold War tensions with the Eastern Bloc, the unassuming 2,000 square foot, 168 meters squared structure was an emergency bunker that would function as a local nerve center in the event of nuclear war. Its purpose was to enable the government to continue operating even in the midst of catastrophe. To accommodate its occupants, it contained a kitchen, ventilation system, generator, control center, message rooms, officers' rooms, and escape hatches. Britain's Civil Defense Control Center ran the site for 12 years before it was disbanded in 1968. at which point it became a storage facility for emergency supplies. Volunteers maintained the building until the 1990s, when it was left behind for good. Like all other nuclear bunkers throughout the country and world, it was never used for its original intended purpose. Today, the long-abandoned shelter's interior is moldy, damp, and filled with garbage and rusting furniture. It's the only remaining Cold War site in Llandaff. In 2022, it was designated as a Grade 2 listed property, which means that it's protected under law due to its historical value, despite its state of disrepair. 3. 17th Century Tavern. Just outside the Goldman Sachs headquarters at 85 Broad Street in Lower Manhattan, there's a glass window in the sidewalk offering a view of the foundation walls of a 17th century bar. Known as Lovelace's Tavern, it opened in 1670, just 100 feet, 30.5 meters away from the house where the city's first mayor lived. At the time, the city's upper limit only extended a few blocks north of the site, and its tallest building, measuring just 5 or 6 stories, sat next door to Lovelace's. The tavern remained in business until 1706, when it burned down in a fire, and the property was subsequently allotted to the city's growing merchant district. During development negotiations in the 1970s, it was brought up that the property was suspected to contain archaeological remnants dating back to the Dutch colonial period. As part of an agreement with the Landmarks Preservation Commission, the Dollar Savings Bank funded one of the most expensive urban excavations in American history. The project's main goal was to uncover the remains of New York's first city hall, Stadhuis. That never happened, but the team was nevertheless thrilled to come across the ruins of the Lovelace Tavern. In it, they found bowls, plates, tobacco pipes, broken bottles, and animal remains. The tavern's 350-year-old foundation marked one of the only known above-ground examples of the 17th century Dutch presence in Manhattan, most of which was destroyed in a fire back in 1835. And while it's easy to miss the windowed sidewalk amid the hustle and bustle of the Big Apple, it offers a compelling reminder of the city's rich history and the dramatic ways in which the landscape has changed over the centuries. 2. A neighborhood no longer. Nestled in the forest behind a rest stop in North Haven, Connecticut, are the crumbling remains of what was once a 15-acre, 6.1 hectares neighborhood called Banton Street. Located along the Quinnipiac River, the community sprang up during the 1920s and was home to around 42 families at its peak. Banton Street was already prone to flooding to begin with. Over the years, upstream development caused the problem to become exponentially worse. After 3 days of heavy rain in 1973, it became clear that it was only a matter of time before the area was no longer habitable, and that it was dangerous for residents to continue living there. The state government bought the properties through eminent domain, and the residents moved to higher ground. Authorities demolished the houses, but reminders of their existence are still visible today in the form of empty lots, building foundations, overgrown curbs, the remnants of driveways, streets, fences marking former property lines, and even a staircase that leads ominously into the river. The former neighborhood is located within Quinnipiac River State Park, and is there for visitors to explore if they can spot it. 1. Middle of nowhere subway station. In 2015, the Kaohsiawan subway station opened up on the outskirts of Chongqing, China. Its 3 entrances were located in the middle of barren fields and surrounded by overgrown weeds, quickly earning it a reputation as the middle of nowhere metro stop. The stop was implemented along the city's Line 6 subway as a way to connect the rural Kaijiagang suburb with the city center. At first, there were no buildings, businesses, paved roads, or other public transportation nearby, and there appeared to be very few commuters who used the stop. Only one of the 3 entrances were in use, with the other 2 remaining closed up and dark at all times. The interior was shiny and brand new, but it seemed more like a ghost station than a functional waypoint along an otherwise busy subway line. And it stayed this way for years, until the rapid development that China has become known for caught up with the even speedier expansion of Chongqing's underground. An avenue running alongside the station was completed and opened in 2020, but it's unclear whether it's drawing increased ridership compared to the handful of commuters who could be seen entering and exiting the station on any given day.
Number 7. The Roswell Files. The Roswell Files are a collection of declassified government documents that speak on the alleged recovery of a UFO near Roswell, New Mexico in July 1947. It also apparently mentions the UFO's supposed extraterrestrial drivers. The incident sparked a controversy that has lasted for decades. It inspired many conspiracy theories about aliens and cover-ups that continue to this day. The official story, according to the FBI and the Air Force, is that the debris discovered by a rancher was from a high-altitude weather balloon, part of a secret project called Mogul, conducted to monitor Soviet nuclear testing. The FBI's vault, an online reading room that holds over 2,000 government files, includes a teletype from the FBI Dallas field office dated back to July 8, 1947 that confirms this explanation. But some ufologists and witnesses claim that the debris actually originated from a crashed flying saucer and that the military recovered 3 or 4 alien bodies. They cite a press release issued by the Roswell Army Airfield on July 8, 1947, stating they captured a flying disc, which was later retracted by a higher authority. They also point to several testimonies from former military personnel and civilians who said they saw strange materials and corpses that did not match up with any known human or animal anatomy. The Roswell Files have been the subject of countless books, documentaries, movies, and TV shows, as well as investigations by researchers and organizations. Some of them have even requested that the government release more information about the incident, while others have accused the government of trying to hide the truth and engaging in a cover-up. The Roswell Files remain open in the eyes of many who seek answers to one of the most fascinating mysteries of the 20th century. Number 6. WikiLeaks, the ultimate whistleblower. Have you ever wondered what your government is up to behind closed doors? Well, you're not alone. There's a whole website that's made its mission to expose the hidden truths of the world powers. It's called WikiLeaks, and it has began leaking classified documents from governments since 2006. WikiLeaks was initially founded by Julian Assange, a former hacker and activist who believes in the power of transparency. He and his team of volunteers have gotten their hands on thousands of secret documents from anonymous sources and published them online for the public to see. Some of the most famous leaks include diplomatic cables, which revealed the honest and sometimes embarrassing views U.S. diplomats had on foreign leaders, allies, and enemies; war logs, which showed the grim realities of the conflict in Afghanistan and Iraq, including civilian casualties, torture, and corruption; the Guantanamo files, which exposed the harsh conditions detainees faced at the U.S. military prison in Cuba; and CIA hacking tools that exposed how the spy agency can hack into smartphones, computers, TVs, and even smart cars. Of course, not everyone is happy with WikiLeaks. Many governments have hailed the website as a threat to national security and international relationships. Assange himself has faced legal troubles, including an extradition request from the US, where he's wanted for espionage charges. He had been living in asylum at the Ecuadorian embassy in London for over a decade. But despite the controversies, WikiLeaks continues to operate and release new documents. Whether you see the site as a hero or a villain, there's no denying that WikiLeaks has changed the way we see our world. Number 5. Prigozhin's double game. Yevgeny Prigozhin is a Russian businessman and close associate of President Vladimir Putin. He's also the owner of the Wagner Group, a private military company that works in several conflict zones around the world, often in support of Russian international interests. But according to leaked U.S. intelligence documents, Prigozhin was not always loyal to his homeland. In fact, he recently tried to offer Russian troop locations to Ukraine in exchange for a ceasefire in Bakhmut, where Wagner Group forces were suffering from heavy casualties. The documents, which were published by the New York Times in April 2023, reveal that Prigozhin reached out to Ukrainian military intelligence multiple times in late January 2023, and offered them a deal. If Ukraine withdrew its forces from Bakhmut, he would give them information on Russian troop movements. The evidence also suggests that Prigozhin had a secret relationship with Ukrainian intelligence that included phone calls and meetings in an unspecified African country. So why did Prigozhin do this? According to the documents, he was upset with the Russian military's lack of support for his fighters, and he wanted to save his men from further losses. He also hoped to gain leverage over Putin and the Kremlin, whom he felt were not rewarding him enough for his services and loyalty. But his plan backfired big time. Ukraine didn't trust Prigozhin at all and rejected his offer, suspecting that it was either a trap or a cheap trick. The US also doubted Prigozhin's intentions and warned Ukraine not to make deals with him. Prigozhin's treason was exposed when the US intelligence documents were leaked by Jack Teixeira, a National Guard airman who was arrested by the FBI shortly after. The leak caused a major scandal for both Russia and Prigozhin, who denied any involvement. Prigozhin's offer to the Ukraine shows that he is not only a ruthless mercenary, but also a cunning man who's willing to betray his own country for his benefit. But his gamble didn't pay off, and he may have lost more than he gained. What do you think about the current situation in Ukraine? Share your thoughts with us in the comments down below. And subscribe if you're enjoying the video so far. Number 4, the US government's secret body snatching. During the 1950s, the US government was conducting nuclear weapons tests around the world and wanted to study how radiation affects human health. But they faced a major problem. How would they obtain human tissue samples without raising ethical concerns or legal issues? Their solution was to secretly collect samples from over 900 human cadavers without asking for permission from the deceased's next of kin. The program, Project Sunshine, was established by the Atomic Energy Commission, or AEC, and involved a worldwide network consisting of hospitals, morgues, and medical schools. The AEC recruited both doctors and scientists to participate and offered them incentives like funding, equipment, and access to classified data. The participants were told to collect samples of bones, organs, and other tissues from deceased patients or donors and send them to AEC laboratories. The program was kept secret from the public and family members who were never informed of what happened to their loved ones' remains. The AEC also used code names and serial numbers to conceal the identities of the donors and where the samples came from. The program was finally exposed in 1994 when a British journalist named Rob Edwards got a hold of a copy of a secret AEC report that detailed the collection activities. The document revealed that the program collected samples from people of all ages and backgrounds, including infants, children, pregnant women, and even Hiroshima and Nagasaki survivors. The revelation sparked outrage. As a result, several investigations and lawsuits were launched. The US government apologized for the program and agreed to compensate families of the tissue donors. Still, though, many questions remain unanswered. How many people were affected by the program? What were the results of the radiation studies? And where are the samples today? The US government's secret body snatching shows that they were more than willing to violate human rights in the name of national security and scientific progress. Their actions also had unintended consequences, such as damaging public trust and creating ethical dilemmas. Number 3, the Snowden files. How one man exposed the secrets of the NSA. Have you ever wondered what the government knows about you? Well, thanks to Edward Snowden, a former contractor for the National Security Agency, or NSA, we have a decent idea. In 2013, Snowden leaked thousands of classified documents that showed the extent of US electronic surveillance on both domestic and foreign targets. The documents exposed some of the most secretive and controversial programs the NSA ran, some of which include PRISM. The program allowed the NSA to collect data from popular internet companies like Google, Facebook, Microsoft, and Apple. The data included emails, chats, photos, videos, and more. The agency claimed that it only targeted foreigners, but the documents showed that it also collected data from American citizens without warrants. X-Keyscore. This program enabled analysts to search through databases of emails, online chats, and browsing histories. The analysts could also enter any keyword or phrase and get results from all over the world. The program, which was so powerful that one NSA document wrote, you could literally watch every keystroke as it is typed. Boundless Informant. This program was a tool that analyzed data collected by the NSA. It showed how much information was collected from each country and region. The documents revealed that the NSA collected billions of records from foreign countries like Iran, Pakistan, Germany, and even inside the US. Snowden's leaks sparked a widespread debate about privacy, security, and civil liberties. Some people called him a hero and a whistleblower, while others believed he was a traitor and a criminal. Snowden left the US and sought asylum in Russia, where he lives to this day. He faces charges of espionage and theft of government property in the US, which could land him in prison for decades if he ever returns. Whether you agree with what Snowden did or not, his leaks have changed the way we think about our online behavior and our relationship with the government. They have also inspired other whistleblowers and activists to expose government secrets and abuse. As Snowden said himself, the public needs to know the kinds of things a government does in its name, or the consent of the governed is meaningless. Number 2, the FBI's Bigfoot file. The Sasquatch, which is commonly referred to as Bigfoot, is a legendary creature that supposedly lives in North America's woodlands. Many people claim to have seen or heard the beast, but no conclusive evidence has ever been brought forward. But did you know that the FBI actually had a file on Bigfoot? According to the FBI's Freedom of Information Library, the agency opened up a file on the creature back in 1976 after getting a request from Peter Byrne, the director of the Bigfoot Information Center and Exhibition in Oregon. Byrne sent the FBI some hair and tissue samples that he truly believed belonged to Bigfoot and asked the agency to analyze them. The FBI agreed to do so and assigned the case to J. Cochran Jr., the Assistant Director of the Scientific and Technical Services Division. Cochran examined the samples under a microscope and compared them with samples taken from known animals. He concluded that the samples were of deer family origin. Cochran later wrote back to Byrne, telling him the results and closing the case for good. He also added that the FBI has not been involved, nor will it be in the future, unless there is some reason to believe that there has been a violation of federal law involved in any study pertaining to creatures such as Bigfoot. The FBI's files on Bigfoot was declassified and publicly released in 2019 as a part of the agency's policy to disclose files on subjects that are deceased. This implies that the FBI once considered Bigfoot to be a real entity and that it was no longer alive. Still, this doesn't mean the mystery of the creature is solved. Many Bigfoot enthusiasts still believe he exists and that the FBI's analysis was incomplete. They point to other evidence like footprints, photographs, and eyewitness accounts that suggest Bigfoot is more than a simple myth. Whether you believe in Bigfoot or not, you have to admit that the FBI's file on the subject is a fascinating piece of history. It shows that even the most powerful government agency can be curious about the unknown. And at number 1, the lost bomb. Imagine losing your car keys or your wallet. Pretty common, right? Now imagine losing a hydrogen bomb. Well, that's exactly what happened to the US Air Force in 1958, when a B-47 bomber accidentally dropped a nuclear weapon near Savannah, Georgia. The bomb, nicknamed the Tybee bomb after a nearby island, has never been discovered, and its location remains a mystery to this day. The incident happened on February 5, 1958, during a training exercise called Operation Snow Flurry. The B-47 was carrying a Mark 15 hydrogen bomb, which was equivalent to 260 times the power of the bomb that destroyed Hiroshima. The bomb was not actually armed with a nuclear core, but it did hold conventional explosives and radioactive material. As the B-47 was flying over the Atlantic Ocean, it was intercepted by an F-86 fighter jet. The two planes collided mid-air, causing severe damage on both ends. The B-47 managed to stay in the air, but the pilot had to jettison the bomb to reduce weight and prevent a possible detonation. He dropped the explosive into the shallow waters near Tybee Island, hoping it would be easy to recover later. But the search for the bomb was futile. Despite using sonar, metal detectors, and divers, the Air Force could not find the device in the murky water and shifting sands. The search was eventually called off entirely, and the bomb was classified as irretrievably lost. The Tybee bomb is one of several nuclear weapons that have gone missing or been abandoned by the US military. The Pentagon claims that there is no risk of a nuclear explosion or radiation leakage from these weapons, but some experts and activists disagree. They argue that the bombs could pose a threat to the environment and public safety, especially if they fall into the wrong hands. The Tybee bomb remains one of the most baffling mysteries of the Cold War era. Who knows where it is beneath the waves? Maybe one day someone will find it and solve the mystery once and for all, or maybe it will stay lost forever, a silent reminder of the dangers of nuclear weapons.
5. The sunken war gold of the Atlantic. In 2018, treasure hunters set sail in order to try and find 300 billion pounds, $389.6 billion worth of war gold from 700 wrecks identified at the bottom of the sea. This effort comes after countless years of research into the locations of more than 7,500 merchant vessels lost during both world wars. The cargoes were valuable because Britain was attempting to secure its economic future during the war, and as a result, many pieces of gold bullion were transported via ships to the US for safekeeping until after the conflict was over. The gold was also used to buy useful resources like ammunition and weapons, as well as other general goods to keep not only the servicemen, but also the general public in good shape. The British ensured that any information regarding ships with gold was classified, making it a challenge for researchers. Nonetheless, the team embarking on the expedition had a great track record, including discovering historical treasures like the HMS Victory, the Russian submarine Kursk, and German U-boats. What was impressive about this salvage attempt was that the team gathered a staggering 27 terabytes of data about the wrecks. They'd done their homework by studying all sorts of valuable sources, such as inquest documents and first-hand accounts from survivors. The reason that the treasure hunters are able to salvage these wrecks, even though they sank during the war, is because they were merchant ships. They aren't typically classified as war graves. This is despite the fact that many on board these vessels lost their lives, including child evacuees. But the team plans to place a commemorative plaque at each site they visit in order to honor those who died. The gold no longer belonged to its original owners, but the British government instead, under the War Risk Insurance Program. This meant that the team would be expected to share their find equally with the government. And this is due to the fact that the sheer amount of gold that was lost made it all uninsurable. According to the International Salvage Convention, the team is expected to share 50% of their find with the government. But even if they get just half of what they find, it would still be a hefty 150 billion pounds, or 194.8 billion US dollars. When it comes to exploring the ocean floor, the team is equipped with some seriously impressive technology. They'll be using side-scan sonars and remote-operated vehicles, ROVs, that can function at incredible depths of up to 16,400 feet, or 5,000 meters below the surface. These tools will help them carry out their operations effectively and gather valuable information about the wrecks they're searching for. To make the most out of their resources and keep costs manageable, the researchers have come up with a clever strategy. They'll focus their search on clusters of wrecks that are situated close to each other. And by doing this, they can optimize their efforts and make the most economical use of their resources. These groups of wrecks are primarily found in three main areas: the western approaches, the Caribbean, and off the west coast of Africa. In the early stages of their expedition, they'll start by targeting wrecks in shallower waters. This allows them to gradually build their expertise and gather important data before venturing into deeper areas. It's a smart approach that ensures they make progress while keeping things manageable. There's been no news as of yet, but who knows what this team will discover. 4. Precious family heirlooms. Imagine finding a hidden treasure that had been buried by your family over 70 years ago. Well, this is exactly the story of Jan Glazowski, who, at the age of 69 in 2023, unearthed a stash of Ukrainian silver coins that had been buried by his grandfather during World War II. At the time, the eastern town of Ivano-Frankivsk was actually part of Poland. And so, in 1939, as the Germans invaded the country, the family chose to flee, burying their heirlooms and valuable treasures on their estate in hopes that they'd be able to return. Only the head of the family, Adam Glazowski, remained on the estate to face the invading Russians, who threw him off his land and nearly killed him. However, his loyal staff intervened to save him. The 4 sons of Adam, realizing the grim prospect of living under Soviet rule if they went back, made the decision to settle in different parts of the world, severing all ties with their father. But they never forgot about the hidden treasure, preserving its memory throughout their lives. It was Jan's father, Gustav, who eventually told his son about the buried treasure. Gustav had fled to South Africa, and as he neared the end of his life, Jan pestered him to draw him a map of where the treasure was located so that he could search for it one day. So, in 1989, Gustav was forced to recall locations and memories he hadn't experienced for over 50 years. But he ended up drawing the map for his son and added some instructions as well. And one of the last pieces of writing on the map read, "You must find our silver and my hunting guns." Gustav died 2 years later in 1991, and ironically, he passed away when Ukraine gained its independence from the Soviet Union. However, it would be 10 years before Jan would finally be able to visit the site of the family estate. And it took another 18 years before he'd officially begin the search for their treasures in 2019. The manor house the family had lived in had long been destroyed by the Russians, but Jan's father had drawn out where it would have been located, allowing him and his niece, who joined the search, to be able to find the foundations and know they were on the right track. From there, the map led them across what was once a field, but was now covered in brushland. His father's instructions were to then dig where the forest starts. But of course, almost 80 years can mean a lot when it comes to a forest. However, Jan followed his instincts, and when the metal detectors started to go off, he was rewarded. They managed to dig up a large amount of silver pieces, including candlesticks and coins, which were easily worth thousands of dollars. But the most precious thing to Jan was finding his mother's jewelry, as she died when he was only 7 years old. Another item that he cherished was a silver christening spoon, which had his father's name engraved on it. So even though the treasure wasn't worth millions of dollars, to Jan Glazowski and his family, the find was truly priceless. What would you do if you found your family's lost treasures? Let us know in the comments down below, and don't forget to subscribe while you're at it. 3. The Merkers Mine Haul. Toward the end of World War II, the American Army made a significant discovery of Nazi gold in Germany. On April 4, 1945, as the American Army advanced north through Germany past Frankfurt, they reached the town of Merkers. The local residents, who'd been subjected to forced labor by the Nazis, informed the American soldiers about a large hidden gold stockpile in a nearby salt mine. The soldiers decided to investigate the rumors and proceeded to the mine. They encountered a massive vault door reminiscent of those found in major banks. After blasting open the door, they entered a chamber that measured 151 feet and 75 feet in width. And to their surprise, the chamber was filled with an extensive collection of items. The recovered artifacts included 8,307 gold bars, 55 boxes of gold bullion, 3,326 bags of gold coins, 63 bags of silver, and 1 bag of platinum bars. But that wasn't all. They also found 8 bags of gold rings and teeth, 3,682 bags of German currency, 80 bags of foreign currency, and 27 paintings by Rembrandt. Experts from the American Treasury and the Bank of England estimated that the gold alone in the chamber amounted to at least $262,213,000 at the time, which would be equivalent to approximately $4 billion in today's economic climate. Former President and then Allied Forces Commander Dwight D. Eisenhower visited the site to witness the magnitude of the discovery. The reason behind the Nazis' need to stockpile such a significant amount of gold was the necessity to pay for essential resources that Germany required for its war efforts. Countries like Portugal, Romania, Turkey, and Sweden, which supplied resources such as tungsten, oil, chrome, and ballistics, didn't accept German currency as payment. Therefore, the Nazis resorted to using gold to secure these items. However, the amount of gold needed exceeded the German reserves, and as a result, the Nazis looted gold from various sources, including the property of millions of Jews and others who were incarcerated in concentration camps. Anticipating that Merkers would fall under Soviet control once the war ended, the American soldiers swiftly relocated the contents of the vault to Frankfurt, which was under U.S. occupation. And although General George Patton initially wanted to keep the discovered gold as a secret military fund, a significant portion of it was eventually returned to the countries from which it had been taken. Additionally, 6 tons, 5,443 kilograms of gold were allocated to the Holocaust Relief Fund. 2. Treasure at the Polish Palace. In 2022, treasure hunters in Poland discovered a significant amount of gold that had allegedly been buried underneath an 18th century palace near the village of Minkowski. The exact weight of the gold unearthed is uncertain, but it's stated to be over 4 tons, 3,629 kilograms. The team employed the use of georadar technology to survey the area and also relied on a diary attributed to an SS officer. This diary was considered crucial because during World War II, the palace, which is now in ruins, was reportedly utilized as a brothel by the SS forces operating in the region. The foundation responsible for the excavation is known as the Silesian Bridge, named after the region of Poland in which they operate. And according to their claims, the gold discovered was originally deposited at the Reichsbank in Breslau and was later stolen by Heinrich Himmler, the head of the SS, in the final months of the war. The alleged purpose of this theft was to fund the establishment of the Fourth Reich and to be used for agricultural development in Ukraine to sustain the envisioned new Reich. The group acquired classified documents and a treasure map provided by the descendants of Waffen-SS officers associated with a secretive lodge that purportedly had a history spanning over 1,000 years. Among the documents discovered was a diary attributed to a wartime SS officer, which mentions the existence of 11 hidden locations where treasures from World War II were concealed during the war's final months. The diary indicates that a considerable amount of gold, artwork, valuable items, and religious artifacts were carefully hidden in secure locations throughout the lower Silesia region to prevent them from falling into enemy hands. The diary specifically identifies an officer named Michalis, who allegedly acted as a liaison between high-ranking SS officers and local aristocrats seeking assistance in safeguarding their properties from advancing Soviet forces near the end of the war. It's suggested that Michalis was associated with a religious group known as the Quedlinburgers, who provided the diary and other information to the treasure hunters. During the 1930s and 1940s, the town of Quedlinburg in Lower Saxony, Germany, was reportedly associated with Nazi cult worship due to its historical ties to Henry the Fowler, the first German king who reigned during the 10th century. According to the Silesian Bridge Foundation, the group in Quedlinburg, which is still active today, includes descendants of SS officers who now seek to make amends for the actions of their ancestors and Germany during World War II, particularly towards Poland. Using georadar technology, the treasure hunters detected a reading beneath the conservatory of the palace, and they obtained permission from the Polish Heritage Trust to excavate the site. During the excavation, the team discovered a canister that matched the description provided in the documents. The metal container measured approximately 4.9 feet, or 1.5 meters in height, and 1.5 feet, or 0.5 meters in circumference. However, the canister hasn't been opened yet, as it requires thorough examination and disarmament by the military due to the high possibility, based on their intelligence, that it might be booby-trapped. Nonetheless, it's highly likely that the gold and other valuable items are still inside the canister. 1. The stolen Confederate gold in Lake Michigan. In 2015, 2 treasure hunters believed that they'd found the wreckage of a ship containing $2 million of stolen Confederate gold. The pair, Kevin Dijkstra and Frederick J. Monroe, believe that the wreck of a tugboat they've uncovered in Lake Michigan may contain the proceeds that were stolen from the Confederates during the American Civil War. The location remained a tight-lipped secret for many years, until a deathbed confession by a man named George Alexander Abbott, who revealed the location of the wreck. But even then, it would take a while for anyone to follow up on this information, as Monroe was only told about it in 1972, 51 years after Abbott's passing. Getting his friend Dijkstra, a trained driver, involved meant that the pair now had a good chance of trying to find the wreck based on the decades-old information that had been relayed to them. The gold had been on a boxcar that was being carried by a tugboat, but the boxcar fell off the vessel. Dropping boxcars was pretty common back in the late 1800s, when they'd be routinely dumped in order to lighten the cargo of the ship carrying them. When diving one day in their search, the pair picked up a ship on their sonar. Upon investigating, they were able to see that the tugboat was remarkably intact. And next to the cabin door of the 70-foot, 21.3-meter vessel was a safe. It's not exactly clear if the men were able to pry the safe open, but they believed it contained the stolen Confederate gold. Which one of these wartime treasure troves did you find the most fascinating? Let us know in the comments down below. And if you're new here, be sure to subscribe to the channel to be notified every time we post a video. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.